If the white male is gonna rule, then he must crush the black male.
Yeah.
White male, you are wrong.
Yeah.
Because if in reality, because of white supremacy, you believe that in order for you to survive as a white man, you have to crush a black man's existence, then in crushing our existence, you are doing something to your own. Because ultimately, no power on earth,
No power,
for any long period of time can keep any man from attaining what God himself has willed for that man.
Pose the question, why do white people hate black people so much? I have been in situations where I've been surrounded by nothing but white people, and this conversation has come up. The race conversation has come up, and no one ever has an actual reason as to why they hate black people. There's always these, oh, black on black crime, oh, they're lazy, oh, they're this, but it's not actually, there's no legitimacy behind their reasoning. It's just shit that they've heard and they're regurgitating. And so, long story short, it really comes down to there is no reason. It's a deep-seated jealousy, a deep-seated hate that, you know, black people exude greatness. Black people are the great inventors. Black people are the beginning of the human race, the Eve gene. And white people have worked so hard to erase the history and erase the greatness of the black race. Down to even when things are invented, the majority of things that are invented were invented by a black person. But yet the white race has actually erased the original inventor from history and have put their names on things that they had no business putting their names on.
Why do white people resent black excellence? Let's talk about it. Not all white people are racist, obviously, but there is a specific subset for whom black excellence seems like a personal affront to them, right? It really bothers them when black people succeed. The 13th Amendment emancipated enslaved black Americans in 1865, and then the Jim Crow laws kind of wrapped up with the passing of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. So if we do the math, that's about 61 years in which black Americans were able to strive for success in any sort of meaningful way without like the constraints of the law pulling them down. 61 years. If we compare that to white Americans who besieged a land already owned and occupied by indigenous Americans, we'll put that around 1620 when, you know, the Mayflower came here, then that gives them about 425 years to establish success in this country. 425 versus 61. If we compare those two fundamentally very different time spans, like, how much did white Americans actually do in all of that time? If we are to compare even the poorest and most underprivileged of white America to black America generally, it is clear that white Americans are born way past the start line, right? By that I mean, by like nature of being white in American society, you do benefit from all sorts of privileges. And like, to be frank, you're not exhausted by the horrible experience of facing racism on a daily basis, right? You do have a ton of privileges. So I imagine existing in this bubble of privilege that you like totally deny, the existence of black people for whom success is like second nature when it comes so easily and so readily, even though you've only had 61 years to achieve it, I imagine that's exhausting and frustrating. I imagine it makes people feel super, super inferior and hurts certain people's tiny, tiny little egos. And what do they blame that deep, deep psychic pain on? Well, of course, DEI and critical race theory and affirmative action. So I guess the question is, what might help those white Americans who just so strongly detest black excellence? Like, what will help you? And for that, I would suggest like a lot of therapy, like a ton of therapy.
One of the reasons the black man and black woman are so hated in this world is because we're the only people on earth who can reproduce ourselves within any other people. If I lay with a Latino, an Arab, an East Indian, a Native American, a European Jew, an Anglo-Saxon female, she's producing a black child. No matter what man a black woman lays with, she produces a black baby. No other group can do that. And the European in particular can only reproduce himself and his own woman. If the white man wants a white child, he can only copulate with the white woman because his genetic power is so weak that he has to stay within his community in order to reproduce himself.
So stitch this and tell me something that white people aren't ready to hear.
We white women have an inferiority complex. The Negro women have a sort of reputation for being so beautiful. We're a little jealous of them.
I guess you just envy us colored people.
That black women were there to support me and to advise me, but not to rise above or become better than me. And that's why when this black teacher was way better and more talented than me, I felt some kind of way about it. Now, I'd imagine lots and lots more white women have also internalized the same idea, and that's why they feel okay stealing black women's content and not giving them any credit, because the black women are just there to advise them anyway.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we can debate this for as long as we want, but nobody ever thought that a black person would rise and one day they will occupy spaces that nobody ever thought of or nobody ever thought about. And this is why we have great people like the Luther, the Martin King Luther, we have Barack Obama. These people had a dream. They had a dream about the black person, and they knew that one day or another, were it not for the oppression and for the bad things that happened to the black person, especially during the colonization period and the slavery and the immigration or the migration period, nobody ever knew that one day there will rise a black person who will stand up and they will take up spaces. They will work in places where a common person who is white has never thought of. Okay, let me take you up to speed. So this is into the question why the white person or rather the white community cannot get enough of why a black person should just be excellent. You can just excel in whatever you do and so on. So during the slavery period, or rather during colonization, the migration of slaves and all that, there are specific skills and works that were meant only for the black persons. One of them was like the black people were only allowed to work in agriculture, that is the farms, because this was considered as a dirty job which can only be handled by a black person. No, let's not forget about the domestic service. The black people were there serving the white people, as their maids. They were taking care of the children. And who was taking care of the black person's child that time? Nobody at all. In fact, you could give birth and then they take over. So your husband, this is sad, your husband, your entire family would work for a white person as a slave, as a domestic worker. And at the end of the day, it wasn't just work. You were paid peanuts. You were literally not even getting paid. This happened during the slavery. This happened during the slave period. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have any comments about this topic, I would love to hear your opinion from a different perspective. Yeah. And then again, also we have the skilled workers who worked at, artisans and all that. Yeah. So basically, this is what a black person was allowed to do, not because they were not skilled enough to do the other jobs, to do the white collar jobs, but they did the black collar jobs, or rather the blue collar jobs, as they call it, and industrial workers, and even if they were working in industry, they couldn't work as supervisors. You get me? They were working as people who carry stuffs around and all that. There is nowhere in the history where a black person was given a chance maybe to step into a class. It's not that because they didn't have brains to fathom or rather to consume whatever knowledge that was being offered. So with all this circus and with all these happenings, this has created the hatred between the white community and the black community, because the white person has been raised to know that there's nothing that a black person can do. These people, they belong into the dungeons. These people, they can't even go to class. And yet, I am telling you, even if you do research, you go to the biggest institutions like Yale University, you'll find black students doing excellent in terms of academics and all that. So up to this point, I don't know really who to blame. Do we blame the academic sector into not bringing this to light? Because this has broadened up as years passes by. And now that a black person can do something that a white person did not for a second thought that could be done by a black person, it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem because now we are in a ground where we can compete fairly. You've gone to school, I've gone to school. You know about stuffs, I know about stuffs. We can compete fairly, and probably, maybe I'll win. Yeah. So until we rectify our systems, that is the time that we will have like a better world where maybe we could coexist without these stereotypes and all. Because for a fact, a lot has happened, and most of you would be wondering like, why the black community, why are we still talking about these stuffs? We are talking about these stuffs because there is a generation that is going to come before us. And what is going to happen to them if they do not know the truth? They should know the truth. So ladies and gentlemen, my name is Yvonne, just in case you're new here. Thank you for coming across my channel, and you are welcome to being part of my online family. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Please like this video, share wide, comment, let me know what do you think about this particular topic, or rather you could tell us maybe onto your own perspective, why do you think the white people are still scared about the black excellency?